Good morning, children.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning. Good morning, children.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning. Happy New Year to all of you.
Same to you, ma'am.
Happy New Year, ma'am.
Happy
Happy New Year.
Happy New.
Ma'am.
Thank you,
Happy
children.
New
Happy
Year.
New Year to you, all of you. All right. So getting back to the chapter, quadrilaterals. We are done with all the proofs and the two exercises, 8.1, 8.2, and also the examples. We are still to understand the theorem, the midpoint theorem and the converse of midpoint theorem. Let's do the midpoint theorem first. The statement has been explained, children. I want you to write down. Please copy the write out this in your notebook, and then we'll see the explanation. As you write, try to understand something. Please write down this theorem and the proof in your notebook, and then we shall see the explanation. Finish writing, children?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
1 minute, ma'am.
All right. Please acknowledge when you're done writing.
Completed, ma'am.
All right. Others?
Ma'am, 1 minute, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
Yes, children, done?
I'm coming to the last one.
Yes.
Okay. All right, I think beyond this, you have to take a screenshot and complete it, children. Take a screenshot.
Done, ma'am.
All right. So according to the statement, we are given a triangle. We are given a triangle. You can call it ABC. Triangle ABC, in which D is the midpoint of AB, E is the midpoint of AC. Because the statement says the line segment, the line drawn through the midpoint, the line drawn through the midpoint. Okay, we're doing the midpoint theorem, right? Okay, the line segment joining the midpoints of two sides of a triangle. The line segment joining the midpoints of any two sides of a triangle. So we are given a triangle and the midpoint of two sides, any two sides of this triangle is known to us. So given triangle ABC, given D is the midpoint of AB, given E is the midpoint of AC. Now the line segment joining the midpoints, now is the result, is parallel to the second side. The line segment joining the midpoints of any two sides of a triangle is parallel to the third side. The third side is BC. These are the two sides of the triangle. AB, where you know the midpoint is D. AC, where you know the midpoint is E. So the line segment joining the midpoints of any two sides of a triangle, this much is given to us. The result or the results is parallel to the third side. So we need to prove that D is parallel to BC. And we also need to prove that D is equal to half of BC. D is parallel to BC and the length of DE is equal to half the length of BC. So if BC is 12 centimeters, then DE will be 6 centimeters. We need to prove that. Okay, so for this we take up a construction through C, draw, you can call it, let me use the same letters I've used here, CG, all right. So through C, draw CG parallel to AB, Through C, draw CG parallel to AB. So that when you produce DE, it intersects CG at F.
Yes, ma'am.
F, okay. So through C, draw CG parallel to the side AB. Through C, draw CG so that it's parallel to AB. And when you produce DE, it meets or it intersects CG at F. This is the construction. Now, what are we trying to prove? We're trying to prove that DE is parallel to BC and DE is equal to half of BC. Now, these results you can get by proving that DBCF is a parallelogram. These results can be got by proving that DBCF is a parallelogram. To get the results, DE is parallel to BC and DE is equal to half of BC. To get these results, we need to show that DBCF is a parallelogram. Once you show that DBCF is a parallelogram, it's very easy to show that DE is parallel to BC and DE is equal to half of BC. So our intention is to show that DBCF is a parallelogram. Now, how are we going to do that? So to prove that DBCF is a parallelogram, here the property or the criteria we use is if one pair of opposite sides is parallel and equal. So in DBCF, we choose the opposite sides DB and CF. We're going to prove that DB is parallel to CF. That already we know by construction. So one more thing, DB is equal to CF. If you prove that DB is equal to CF, then DBCF is a parallelogram. Opposite sides, we are choosing the opposite sides DB and CF. We are trying to show that DB and CF are parallel to each other. This we don't have to do because by construction DB is parallel to CF. Look at the quadrilateral. Look at the quadrilateral DBCF. Look at the opposite sides DB and CF. Is DB parallel to CF? Yes, by construction. Why? Because AB is parallel to CG. AB is parallel to CG. Any part of AB, which is DB, will be parallel to any part of CG, CF. Because AB is parallel to CG by construction, BD is parallel to CF. So BD or DB is parallel to CF is already known to us, or we already have that result by construction. Now the only thing we have to prove is DB is equal to CF. The only thing we have to prove is DB is equal to CF. If you prove that DB is equal to CF, then we can say that DBCF is a parallelogram. So the criteria we are using is, in a quadrilateral, if one pair of opposite sides is parallel and equal, DB and CF are parallel, DB is equal to CF. If you prove that DB is parallel to CF and DB is equal to CF, then DBCF is a parallelogram. But DB parallel to CF is already known to us by construction. So the only result we have to prove is DB is equal to CF. So let's do that by showing that these two triangles are congruent to each other. We're going to prove that these two triangles are congruent to each other. To get this result, DB is equal to CF. To get this result, DB is equal to CF. Now you will wonder that DB is not a part of the triangle. See, we're taking up the triangles ADE, 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 and CEF. CEF, these two triangles, CEF. We're taking up these two triangles, ADE and CEF. We're going to show that they're congruent to each other. Why? To get this result, DB is equal to CF. But DB is not a part of any of these triangles. CF is the side of this triangle, but DB is not a part of any of these two triangles. But we know that DB is equal to AD because D is the midpoint, right? D is the midpoint of AB. So we know that DB is equal to AD. So it's the same as proving that AD is equal to CF. If you prove that AD is equal to CF, since AD is equal to DB, DB is also equal to CF. It's only the length, right? So if AD and CF are 5 centimeters, DB and CF also will be 5 centimeters because AD and DB are equal. D is the midpoint of AB. These two line segments are equal. D is the midpoint of AB. So we have to prove that, or we want to prove that DB is equal to CF. CF is in this triangle, CEF. DB is not in this triangle, but instead of DB, there's a representative AD here. AD, because AD is equal to DB. So our intention is to prove that AD is equal to CF. So that means we'll have to prove that one side, we have to prove an equality between one pair of sides in these two triangles. So that means you cannot use SSS congruence criterion. Because SSS means all the three sides must be equal. But here we have to prove that AD is equal to CF. That means you cannot use SSS. We cannot use SSS. You cannot use RHS also. You cannot use SSS. You cannot use RHS because you don't know if these two triangles are right triangles.
Ma'am, SAS.
So you're left with SAS, you're left with SAS, AAS,
Ma'am,
or
yes.
AS.
Ma'am, I found SAS.
Okay, yeah, that's what we're left with, these three conference criteria. So you'll have to use any one of these three according to the information available. You cannot use all the three. You'll have to check which will work for the given information.
Ma'am, SAS will work, ma'am.
Yeah, we'll just check. Now, is it known? Do you know that if I mark this angle, it's easier to understand in this figure. If I mark this angle, ignore the numbers there. I don't know what I've used there. So just if I mark this angle as 1 and this is 2, I'm just marking off all the angles in the triangle. Let me mark this also 3, 4, 5. Tell me, can you alternate interior angles?
Ma'am, yes, ma'am. Ma'am, can I say yes, ma'am?
Can we find a pair of alternate interior angles?
Ma'am, angle 1 is equal to angle 6, ma'am.
Angle 1 is equal to angle 6. Children, don't get confused with the numbers I've used here. Ignore this. Angle 1 is equal to angle 6. Which are the parallel lines?
Ma'am, AD and FC, ma'am.
A, B, and
FC, ma'am.
yeah, okay. AD and very good. Okay, AD and FC, very good. And which is the transversal?
AC, ma'am.
AC is a transversal, very good. So parallel line, transversal, parallel line. Here are the angles, angle 1 and angle 6. Alternate interior angles are equal. Then,
Ma'am, side, ma'am.
Angle 2.
no, we are talking about equalities between angles, children. Let's finish them first. Angle
Ma'am,
1.
angle.
Ma'am, angle 2 is equal to angle 4, ma'am.
Okay. So angle 1 is equal to angle 6. Alternate interior angles are equal. How is AD parallel to CF? Where is it given that AD is parallel to CF? Why is, or how do we know?
Ma'am, when we draw the construction, we said it is parallel to DB,
Correct.
ma'am.
Correct. So because CG is parallel to AB, AD is a part of AB, and CF is a part of CG. So AD is parallel to CF by construction. You can also say that the parallel lines are AB and CG. Parallel lines are AB and CG and transversal AC. Transversal is what is important. Transversal AC. Angle 1 is equal to 6. Alternate interior angles are equal. Then somebody said angle 2 is equal to angle 4. Vertically opposite angles are equal. Then is angle 3 equal to angle 5? Is angle 3
No,
equal
ma'am.
to angle 5? Children, is angle 3 equal to angle 5?
No, ma'am.
All of you please think if angle 3 is equal to angle 5. If for angles 3 and 5, which is the transversal?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. It is equal, ma'am.
DF, ma'am.
DF is a transversal. For angles 3 and 5, which is a transversal?
DF, ma'am.
DF is a transversal. Which are the two lines? Transversal DF.
AD and AD and CF, ma'am.
AD and CF. So AD and CF. So see here. This is AD. This is a transversal DF, and this is FC. So here we have angle 3, and here we have angle 5. Angle 3 is equal to angle 5 if AD is parallel to CF. And yes, AD is parallel to CF by construction. So angle 3 is equal to angle 5. Angle 3 is equal to angle 5. So we have 3 pairs of equal angles. Angle 1 is equal to angle 6. What is that? Alternate interior angles are equal. Angle 2 is equal to 4 vertically opposite angles. 3 is equal to 5. Yes, alternate interior angles are equal. 3 is equal to 5, no doubt, because AD is parallel to CF. But can we use AAA? Is AAA a valid congruence criterion? No.
No, ma'am.
No, we cannot. Okay, now let's talk about the sides. So we find that we have 3 pairs of equal angles. 1, 6, 2, 4, 3, 5. All right. Now, anyways, we cannot use, there is AAA is not a valid congruence criterion. So we're just waiting to find 1 pair of equal sides.
Ma'am, can I see the side, ma'am?
Yeah, tell me.
Ma'am, in the triangle ECG, ma'am, EC is equal to EA, ma'am, because E is the midpoint of AC, ma'am.
Very good. 1 minute. So AE of the first triangle, AE of AED is equal to EC of CEF. AE of AED is equal to EC of CEF because E is the midpoint of AC. AE is equal to EC because E is the midpoint of AC. So if you want to use, so see, it's yours. Now, if you want to use AE is equal to EC as a pair of equal sides, which are the other 2 information which you would use? We have 3 pairs of equal angles, right? Which one you want to use? Which 2 you want to use along with AE is equal to EC? So that they make a valid congruence rule.
And yes.
Yeah, now list all the 3 equalities.
Ma'am, angle 1 is equal to angle 6, ma'am. A, ma'am. Angle, ma'am.
Okay.
Ma'am, and another angle is angle 3 is equal to angle 5, ma'am.
Okay.
And another side is angle AE is equal to EC, ma'am.
Side A is equal to EC. Okay. So Pranav Rajan says 1 is equal to 6, 3 is equal to 5, AE is equal to EC. Correct. Then what will be the congruence rule?
Ma'am, AAS.
AAS. But you can also write this, children. I have used ASA. Or in the books you will find ASA because ASA somewhat dominates AAS. Sometimes you will see that in tech, but it's not. Both are correct. Both are correct. It does. But the thing is, ASA dominates AAS. ASA. That is, in situations where you can use both ASA and AAS, somehow the preference is given to ASA. Listen to me. I'll come again. Now, say there's a situation where you can prove that 2 triangles are congruent by both ASA and AAS. That is, you have lot of information. You don't have, sometimes you'll just have, the minimum information required to prove that the triangles are congruent. Then it will be only one particular congruence rule. You cannot use this or that because we have limited information for which we can use only one congruence rule. But sometimes you have more than the needed information that you can use more than one congruence rule to prove that the triangles are congruent. In situations like this where you can use ASA or AAS, ASA dominates. That is, you are somewhat required to use ASA and mostly in theorems and proofs. But the teacher cannot reduce marks because you use AAS, but I'm again scared. So where you can use AAS or ASA, use ASA. If you feel that you have information to use ASA as well as AAS, please go with ASA. But AAS is not incorrect. That is also a valid congruence rule. I'm telling you that it's a choice. It's a preference. Preference is given to ASA, and that is why you can see that it's proved here using ASA. Right, AAS is also correct. But since you can use ASA, give preference to ASA than to AAS. All right, so angle, if you write angle 1 is equal to 6, 3 is equal to 5, and A is equal to EC, you will get AAS rule. But check if you can use ASA. What is that we have to write for ASA? Two angles in the included side.
Angle 1 is equal to angle 6, angle 2 is equal to angle 4, AE is equal to CE, ma'am.
Yeah. So AE is equal to, now do we know that DE, do we have any other pair of equal sides? Do we have any other pair of equal sides?
Ma'am, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Which one?
Ma'am, in angle DEF, ma'am, E is the
Yeah.
midpoint, so DE is equal to EF, ma'am.
No, E is not the midpoint of DF. E is not the midpoint of DF. E is the midpoint of AC.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So I think we don't have any other pair of equal sides. We can prove once they're congruent, we'll get. But as of now, we have only AE equal to EC. As of now, we have only AE is equal to EC. We don't have any other pair of equal sides. So that means it cannot be SAS also because we have only one pair of equal sides. Because we only know AE is equal to EC, we can't use, so SSS is not possible, SAS is also not possible because we need two pairs of equal sides for SAS and included angle. So that means you can use only AAS or ASA because we have only one pair of equal sides. And if you can use both, prefer ASA. ASA dominates AAS. Just like that. The reason is AAS happens from ASA. So that's how we land up using the ASA congruence criterion to show that these two triangles are congruent to each other. So it's, you cannot remember, no, for this proof it is ASA, for some other proof it is SSS. So the first thing is take up the two triangles, identify the equalities you have in them. Only then you can decide which rule to use. So first, look at all the angles. So there are three pairs of angles and three pairs of sides. Look at the angles and the sides. Write out the pairs of equal angles or equal sides you have with you, and eliminate. So you have only 5 congruence criteria. So keep eliminating whichever is not possible. Like you don't have 3 pairs of equal sides, so you cannot use SSS. So like that, eliminate the congruence criteria. You will be left with 1 or 2. And here we are left with 2, AAS, ASA, and we prefer ASA. So first you need to, in a rough column, just write out all the equalities you have. And then you can decide which congruence rule to use to show that the triangles are congruent. So here angle 1 is equal to 6, 2 is equal to 4, A is equal to EC. Triangles are congruent by ASA congruence criterion. Now that they are congruent, what's the order in which you will name the triangles? If you say AED, is congruent to angle A is angle 1 is equal to angle 6. So we should say C. A goes with C. E goes with E. So CEF. Triangle AED congruent to CEF. So from this, AE is equal to CE. That we already know. AE is equal to CE, we already know. ED is equal to EF. ED is equal to EF. Where is ED? ED is equal to EF. Okay, so this is new. ED is equal to EF. ED is equal to EF is new to us. And then AD is equal to CF. AD is equal to CF. So since you already have the 3 pairs of angles are already equal. Now the other two pairs of sides, ED equal to EF, CF, ED. ED equal to EF. And this side AD is equal to CF is what you get through congruency. So from congruency, the new results you get are AD is equal to CF. This side of AD is equal to this side of CEF. And DE of the first triangle is equal to EF of the second triangle. These are the two new results you get. Now we will have to use these to show that DBCF is a parallelogram. See, that was the intention. We have to show that DBCF is a parallelogram. DB is parallel to CF. We'll have to show that DB is equal to CF. But we got AD is equal to CF. We didn't get DB is equal to CF, but we got AD is equal to CF through congruency. But AD is equal to DB. See, we should not forget our, the reason why we proved that the two triangles are congruent. We want to show that DBCF is a parallelogram and we want the result DB is equal to CF. But we proved that AD is equal to CF through congruency. But AD is nothing but DB. So DB is equal to CF. So DB is equal to CF. Now DB is equal to CF and DB is parallel to CF. So DBCF is a parallelogram. Now when DBCF is a parallelogram, the other pair of opposite sides, DF and BC, will also be parallel to each other. DF and BC also will be parallel to each other because DBCF is a parallelogram. So now that it's a parallelogram, the other pair of opposite sides, DF and BC, are also parallel to each other. So we proved that DF is parallel to BC. Now what is DE? Is a part of DF. So DE is parallel to BC. So we proved that DE is parallel to BC. That's one of the two results which we have to prove. The line segment joining the midpoints is parallel to the third side. So DE is parallel to BC. Next, we'll have to show that DE is equal to half BC. Now the other result will be useful. We know that DE is equal to EF. We know that DE is equal to EF. So that means E is the midpoint. We've proved that E is the midpoint of DF. DE is equal to EF. That means E is the midpoint of DF. Now, in a parallelogram, we know that opposite sides are equal. So that means DF is equal to BC. DF is equal to BC. DF is equal to BC. Now what is DF? DE plus EF. But this EF is also DE. So instead of DF, you can write instead of DF, you can write DE. There's no place, so I'm just struggling to write. 1 minute. Yeah. So since it's a parallelogram, we know that DF is equal to BC. Now DF can be expressed as DE plus EF is equal to BC. But we know that EF is equal to DE. This EF, you can take away EF and you can write DE itself because DE is equal to EF. So this means twice DE is equal to BC. So DE is equal to half of BC. DE is equal to 2 goes to the other side for division. BC by 2. DE is equal to BC by 2 or half BC it is. BC by 2 means half BC. So this is the proof for the midpoint theorem, children. What is given, children? Let's do it again. What is given? Given triangle PQR with we are given a triangle PQR with what is S
S is the midpoint of PQ, ma'am.
and what is T?
T is the midpoint of PR.
Okay, so this much is given to us. Given triangle PQR, S and T are the midpoints of PQ and PR respectively. So what is that we have to prove?
Ma'am,
ST is parallel to QR and ST is half of Q.
Yeah, we have to prove that ST is parallel to QR and ST is equal to half of QR. What is the construction?
ma'am, RQ, ma'am, RO
Through R, draw RO
from QR.
parallel to
Ma'am, PQ.
PQ. Produce ST to meet RO at
To
produce ST to meet RO at
U.
U.
U, ma'am.
U at U. Through R, draw RO parallel to PQ. Then ST produced meets RO at U. Now, which quadrilateral you want to prove as a parallelogram?
Ma'am, QSUR we have to.
QSUR. You want to prove that QSUR is a parallelogram. Now, by construction, you already have one pair of parallel sides. Which are they?
Ma'am, QS and U.
QS is parallel to
yes, ma'am, yes, you.
UR, ma'am.
Yes, you.
RU.
QS is parallel to
Yes, you, ma'am. Ma'am, you are, ma'am. You are, ma'am.
QS is parallel to RU by construction. So you want to prove that QS is equal to RU. Okay, you want to, because QS is parallel to RU, you want to prove that QS is equal to RU. That this is your this is your requirement. You need to prove that QS is equal to RU. If you prove QS is equal to RU, then by the criteria, one pair of opposite sides parallel and equal, then it's a parallelogram. In order to prove that QS is equal to RU, QS is not in any triangle, meaning QS is not a part of any triangle, but QS can be, PS can represent QS. PS can represent QS because PS is equal to QS. So we take the triangles PST. So we take the triangles PST where we have PS, the representative of QS. And we take the other triangle RUT where you have RU. And children, you know, you have to prove that these two triangles are congruent. You can use, with the information we have, we can use AAS or ASA, but we go with ASA.
Angle.
And CPCTC, we get PS is equal to, that is triangle PTS is congruent to.
TRU.
No, if you say PTS, this angle is equal to this angle. Angle 1 is equal to angle 2, and 3 is equal to angle 4. Match the angles. If you say PTS 1 3 1 3, 1 is equal to P is equal to which?
Angle 5 is equal to
R, ma'am.
R. Angle P is equal to R, so you should say R. And for T is
T,
angle
ma'am.
P is equal to 4. So T is not TU.
RTU, ma'am.
So now what is that you wanted? You wanted QS is equal to RU. So you are now very curious to find if PS is equal to RU. Is PS equal to RU? Yes, PS is equal to RU. So you must say, see, PS only was representing QS. PS is equal to RU. Why RU you want opposite sides? Opposite sides. They are equal now by CPCTC. PS is equal to RU. RU. PS is equal to RU, but PS is equal to QS. That means QS is equal to RU. So now in quadrilateral QS, you are one pair of opposite sides, QS and RU, is parallel and equal to each other. So QSRU is a parallelogram. Now that QSUR is a parallelogram, the other pair of opposite sides, US and QR, will be parallel to each other. This implies ST, because at the part of SU is parallel to QR. This means ST is parallel to QR. Because SU is parallel to QR, a part of SU is ST will also be parallel to QR. Now we have to show that ST is equal to half of QR. You know that because SQRU is a parallelogram, you know that SU is equal to QR. Now what is SU? SU is ST plus TU is equal to QR. QR is QR only. You can't do anything with QR. But you know that ST is equal to TU. See here, ST or TS. TS is equal to TU. TS is equal to TU. CPCTC. TS is equal to TU. CPCTC. So TS is equal to TU. These two sides are equal. So instead of TS, you can say, instead of TU, you can say TS because they're equal. So TS plus TS is twice TS. Twice TS. Is equal to QR. TS is equal to half of QR. So we proved that the line segment ST joining the midpoints of the two sides PQ and PR is parallel to the third side QR and equal to half the length of the third side QR. We'll not see the converse of midpoint theorem today. You please learn this up. We'll see the converse in the next class, the proof for the converse of midpoint theorem in the next class. So this is given. This is to be proved. This is the construction. This is the proof for congruency. Once you're congruent, see, you might not know what to write using CPCTC. You might not know. For that, you'll have to go ahead. You can just see, sometimes you will not know what to write through CPCTC. So you can just go ahead and come back and write that. See, like I write triangle AAD is congruent to CEF. Now I don't know what to write through CPCTC. So don't, just go ahead, a little ahead. When you need, okay, then you'll realize, okay, that you need this result from congruency. Then you can go back and fill it here. Maybe after congruency, you can leave 1 or 2 lines. You can go back and fill it if you don't know. Or as you're writing, if you want to, give the result because they're equal through CPCTC, you can write it in the bracket also like this. I've done my part, children. Please work out the proof again maybe and try to remember the proof.
Can I send it in WhatsApp?
Pranav?
And update a writing.
Okay. Is my screen shared, children?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Oh.
ma'am.
Okay. The rest of the class today will be volumes and surface areas. What is 2 pi r square? Square units. You should have memorized by now. I told you. And you know it, even if I don't, you know that you should know that you have to remember all this. Now there's no point. Don't open your book and look into the book and tell me, children, that will not be fair on your part. See how much you can recall. What is 2 pi r square units? 2 pi r square units. Okay, it is something of a hemisphere.
Ma'am, CSA.
CSA of a
Cylinder, ma'am.
no.
Mrs. Hemisphere.
Cylinder means LVH. If there is no H or L, then it is only a sphere hemisphere. If there is no H or L in it, see, for cube and cuboid, for cuboid, you can just pair it up like that. Cuboid, cylinder, cone, sphere, hemisphere. Cuboid, you've been seeing since 7th standard. So I don't think those formulae will be difficult to remember. Cube and for the formula related to cube and cuboid. Sphere and hemisphere, you will see that there is no H in it. It will only be in terms of R. Both sphere and hemisphere, all the formulae will have only pi and R in them. Okay, some number, pi and R, no H. In cylinder and cone, you will have R and H or R and L. For a cone, you'll have L, pi R, L. Children, we'll do one thing now. Open your book. Please learn the formulae, all the formulae under hemisphere and sphere. We'll discuss now in the class because I've been telling you to do it and you're just not taking it seriously. Let's do it now. Please open your book. Please open your book to the formulae under hemisphere and sphere. Learn it up. We'll discuss now. Class, use the emoji. Raise your hand. Okay, so Kanishka, Shreyas, Tarun, Ananya, Deepika, Vasudevan, Shivani Shri, Arav, Sangamitra, Pratiksha, Hitesh, Tarun, Pranav, Nikita. Okay, Nikita, fine. I'll just get back in 2 minutes, children. Please learn the formula under hemisphere and sphere. So one of you tell me all the formulae under hemisphere. Volume, CSA, TSA.
Ma'am, volume of hemisphere is 2 by 3 pi r cube, ma'am.
Pi r cube. See, you can remember like this. Usually it is r square, but there's no h there, no? So r cube. R cube. 2 by 3 pi r cubed. Then what is the CSA of a hemisphere?
Ma'am, that is 2 pi r square. Ma'am.
TSA?
3 pi r square.
Somebody for a sphere?
Volume is 4 by 3 pi r cube, and the total surface area or the curved surface area is 4 pi r square.
Okay, because for a sphere we cannot differentiate between CSA and TSA. There's only one thing, which is surface area, which is the total surface area. There's nothing like the curved surface area is also the total surface area, which is 4 pi r square. All right. Children, then there's also a hollow cylinder or a cylindrical shell and a hollow sphere. You need to look into that also. No, I don't think I have the patience to make you learn them in the class. Explaining is one thing, but giving you time to learn it in the session, I think will only be a waste of time. You should take up that initiative, write and practice, or read it, go through the formula many times. You can use a recording, the first recording, where everything is explained. Why that formula? Why it is whatever formula is explained in the first recording. You can use that recording. So I think we'll take up some questions from this chapter as a test. Yes, work this, children. This is example 1 from NCERT. You don't have to write the question. Just give the reference number. NCERT example 1. Read the question and tell me if you have to find the volume of the cuboid, CSA of the cuboid, or TSA of the cuboid. Read the question and tell me if you have to find volume, CSA, or TSA of the cuboid. Yes, children. Volume, CSA, or TSA of cuboid?
TSA.
TSA. Why?
TSA of cuboid.
Why TSA?
Ma'am, we have to find how many square sheets of paper would be required. No, ma'am. So, yes.
Square, it's not square units, it's not square centimeter, it's square sheets. How many squares? Square is a shape here, not that unit square. How many square sheets of paper? Each sheet of paper is a square. So how many square sheets? Here it is not square units. How many sheets of paper? Each sheet is a square. So how many square sheets of paper of side 40 centimeters would you require? Why TSA, children? Because it's got nothing to do with the inside of the box. You're not filling anything inside the box. The paper, the square sheet or the square sheets have to be wrapped. The box has to be wrapped up with the square sheets of paper. That means it's going to go over the surface, the six surfaces of the cuboid. And surface is surface area. 6 surfaces, all the 6 surfaces. The paper has to cover all the 6 surfaces, the external one. So it is TSA. TSA because you'll have to wrap up the box all over. Okay, then what's the other thing you have to find? TSA of the box, and then what is the other thing you have to find?
How much sheet is required?
Louder?
How much sheet is required, ma'am?
Okay, that is the final thing. So to find the, how will you find the number of sheets required? It's the TSA of the box. Yeah.
Total surface area by area of one sheet.
By area of one sheet. Very good, Sangamitra. Yes. Number of sheets will be the total surface area of the box by the area of one sheet. So the other thing you have to find is the area of one sheet. It's area, not volume, because volume is something to do with the inside of the box. You're pouring something into the box or you're filling the box with something. That is to do with the volume or capacity. Here, the 6 surfaces, the external surface, the 6 surfaces of the box has to be covered. So it is area. And it's total because the box has to be wrapped all over. So take a screenshot, children. We'll have to go to the next one. Please complete this later.
Yep, ma'am.
All right. So the two things you have to find are the total surface area of the cuboid and the area of one square sheet. You have to find the total surface area of the cuboid and the area of one square sheet. Divide to get the number of sheets. Children, this is not the explanation. We have already done 1 or 2 sums like this where I've explained why. So I'm just recalling the steps. I did not explain anything. We've already seen questions like this earlier. I was just telling you the steps, the total surface areas, one thing you'll have to find, and then the area of each square sheet, TSA of the cuboidal box, area of one sheet of paper, then divide to get the number of square sheets. Read and tell me what you would find, like the earlier one. Like the earlier one, we had to find TSA area and then divide to get the number.
We will have to find the CSA plus area of the top.
Yeah, you're right, Sangamitra. So that is for the tank. For the tank, you'll have to find the CSA and the area of the top. Area of the top, is it?
Lid, ma'am.
Oh yeah, it's covered with. Okay, yeah, yeah. Okay.
Ma'am, both.
He gets the outer surface of the tank. It's no, I didn't read the question. I just gone away. Okay, yeah. Yes, Sangamitra, you're right. Because he doesn't get the base of the tank. Again, the tank has 6 faces. The base will be inside. The base of the tank will be inside the tank. That he does not tile it up. He tiles up the 5 outer surfaces. The 4 side walls and the top, which is the lid. Okay, so CSA plus area of the lid. That is the area of the top. Okay, that's one thing we'll have to find then.
Area of one tile.
Area of one tile. It's a square tile. If it is a rectangular tile, it's L into B. It's a square tile. So area of the square tile is equal to
A square.
A square, side into side. And then how do we find the number of tiles? So we found the area. We found the area of the tank that is to be tiled up. We found the area of the tank that is to be tiled up. Then we found the area of one square tile. Next what? What should you do next?
Ma'am, for 5 tiles we have to find.
No. Now with these two, what will you do next? You have the area of the tank that is to be tiled up, and you have the area of one square tile. What's the next step that what is the next step that you will perform?
We'll find the number of tiles.
How? Yes, we'll have to find the number of tiles. How?
Area to be covered by area of one tile.
Very good. The total area to be covered by the area of one tile will give us the number of tiles. And how are the tiles sold in the market? What is the rate? So now we found the number of tiles. We have found the number of tiles. We know how many we have to buy. Now next, coming to the cost, how much we should spend. Only if you know how much you're buying, you will know how much you have to spend. The question is how much, find how much he would spend for the tiles. Okay, you have to find how much he'll spend for the tiles. For that, you should know how much tiles he's buying. So you found, by dividing, you found the number of tiles he has to buy. How is it sold? 360 rupees per dozen. So how much for one tile? 360 rupees for 12 tiles. For one tile?
30.
Yeah, 360 by 12. 360 rupees per dozen. So for 12 tiles, 360 rupees. For one tile, 360 by 12. Into the number of tiles you wish to buy or Hamid has to buy. Since we have 2 units, the edge of the tank is in meter and the square tile, the side of the square tile is given in centimeter. We'll convert to the least of the smaller of the 2 units. So 1.5 meters is converted to centimeter. So we'll find everything in centimeter square. Only 5 faces are tiled up, not 6 faces. So 5 A square. Okay. So area by the surface area divided by the area of one tile will give you the number of tiles and then multiply by the rate. One tile is 30 rupees. So 180 tiles will be 180 into 30, 5,400 rupees. Take a screenshot, children.
Took, ma'am.
Yeah, children, please complete all this and then share the pictures. Please complete once we finish the session. It's lunchtime. Maybe you can finish your lunch. Complete whatever screenshots you've taken. Write it out in your notebook and then share the pictures.
Okay, ma'am. Ma'am, 1 minute. Show the third one, ma'am.
Third one. Which one?
Second one question.
It's here only. You can see it on the same slide. Question. Question.
Yes, ma'am. Now we can see, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Now I can see.
Yeah. Okay, so Savitri had to make a model of a cylindrical kaleidoscope for her school, for her science project. Okay, so Savitri had to make a model of a cylindrical kaleidoscope for her science project. She wanted to use chart paper to make the curved surface. Okay, so she wanted to use chart paper to make the curved surface of the kaleidoscope. Where is she using chart paper? To make the curved surface of the kaleidoscope. Savitri uses chart paper to make the curved surface of the kaleidoscope. It's cylindrical. What would be the area of the chart paper required by her? So whatever is the CSA of the cylinder, if she wanted to make a kaleidoscope of length 25 centimeters and radius 3.5 centimeters. So the length of the kaleidoscope is nothing but the height. The length of the kaleidoscope is nothing but its height. The radius is given. It's cylindrical. It's cylindrical, you know the radius, you know the height, and you know where the chart paper is used, only for the curved surface area. So you have to find the area of the chart paper, meaning you'll have to find the CSA of the cylinder. You have to find the CSA of the cylinder. She uses chart paper only to make the CSA. She wanted to use chart paper to make the curved surface of the kaleidoscope. So chart paper is used only to make the curved surface of the kaleidoscope. The kaleidoscope is cylindrical. Radius 3.5, height 25 centimeter. So how much chart paper? CSA of the cylinder. Take a screenshot, children.
Took, ma'am.
Yeah. What's the formula to find the CSA of a cone? Curved surface area. Look into your book if you don't know and tell me. What is the formula, children, to find the curved surface area of a right circular cylinder?
Pi RL, ma'am.
Pi RL. Is R given to you?
Yes, ma'am.
L?
Yes, ma'am.
That's it. Pi RL will give you the answer.
Ma'am, 1 minute, third one answer, ma'am.
Yeah, can you see it? Example 3. Done, children. Example 4. Took a screenshot.
Yes, ma'am.
Also simple, children. So you can take a screenshot of example 5. Direct application of the formula. If L is not given, you'll have to find L and then work it. What is the TSA of a cone? It's a CSA plus area of the base. Total surface area of a cone is nothing but the CSA. CSA of the cone plus the area of the base. So since we have already found the CSA, I've written pi RL plus pi R square. You can also use the formula pi R into R plus L. You will get the same answer. You have a formula no, to find the TSA of a cone. Pi R into R plus L or pi R into L plus R. Pi R into L plus R. Yeah, you can use the formula. You will get the same answer. Then why I have done using this pi RL plus pi R square? Because we already found pi RL. So CSA we already know. CSA we already know pi RL. So plus the area of the base. Curved surface area plus the area of the base is the total surface area of the cone. CSA of the cone is CSA plus area of the base. So CSA we found 753.6 plus the area of the base pi R square. Pi you should take 3.14. So you can do it like this, or you can use pi R into R plus L. So this is the portion where that that stalk will be attached to the cone, and that the place where the stalk is fixed to the cone, it will be circular. Regard that as the base of the cone. See here, you will have that stick kind of thing, no? That stalk with which you will hold the corn and eat it. It's somewhat cylindrical. That stalk is somewhat cylindrical. Okay. So the place where the stalk is attached to the corn will be circular. Regard that as the base of the cone. The corn cob, we should assume it to be somewhat conical. If it is conical, then it should have curved surface area and a circular base. Take this as a circular base. Take this one as a circular base. See, if you're assuming the corn cob to be somewhat conical, if you have to assume the corn cob to be somewhat conical, then it should have a circular base. Which is that circular base? That portion, that little portion where the stalk is attached to the corn cob will be a circle. There will be no corn. When you break the stalk, when you break this, that the place where the stalk was fixed to the cone will be circular. There will be no corn cob. You will not find the grains there. Not corn cob. You will not find the grains in that circular portion. The rest of it you should regard as CSA. So let me use the same figure. I'll just try once again. So this is that circular portion where that stick kind of thing is attached to the corn. When you break this one, this empty space on the corn cob will be circular. Regard that circle as the base of the cone, circular base of the cone. On that portion, since the stalk was attached, you will not find any grain there. So where is the grain? In the CSA, not TSA, because this little portion is regarded as the base of the cone. The circle is regarded as the base of the cone. And there is no grain there. There will be no grain there because the stalk was fixed. When you break the stalk, that circular portion will be empty. There will be no grain there. So where are the grains arranged? In the CSA of the grains are arranged in the CSA of the cone. The grains are arranged in the CSA of the cone. Why not TSA? You will ask, why not TSA? TSA means including the circle. On the circle, are the grains found on the circle? No. Why? Because the stalk was attached. So you should find only the CSA. So you must find the CSA of the corn cob. Radius and height all given to you. Find the CSA. Then 1 centimeter. So like if the CSA is say some 12 centimeters square. Okay, so CSA says 12 centimeters square. CSA we find. Okay, so it's 12 centimeters square. So on 1 centimeter square, you find how many grains on that area? You find 4 grains. So if the corn cob has an area of 12 centimeters square, you will find 12 into 4, 48 grains you will find. A corn cob shaped somewhat like a cone has a radius of its broadest end as 2.1 centimeters and height as 20 centimeters. If each 1 centimeter square of the surface of the cob carries an average of 4 grains, so on 1 centimeter square of the corn cob, 4 grains are arranged. Find how many grains you would find on the entire corn cob. So 1 centimeter square, there are 4 grains. 2 centimeter square, 8 grains. Grains are that corn which which we eat. These are the grains. One centimeter square, 4 grains. 12 centimeter square, how many grains? Similarly, here you should find the CSA. If the CSA is for example, 12 centimeter square, 1 centimeter square, 4 grains, 2 centimeter square, 8 grains, 3 centimeter square, 12 grains. So like that 12 centimeter square will be 12 into 4, 48 grains. The CSA children, CSA, to find the CSA, the formulas pi r L. We do not know L because height is always the perpendicular height. Height of the cone is always the perpendicular height, not the slant height. So you should find L here using R and H. Radius is given, height is given. Whenever it is height, it is always perpendicular height, not slant height. It's this height of the cone. It's the perpendicular height of the cone. Height is always the perpendicular height, but you need the slant height. This height you need. You need the slant height. You need the slant height of the cone. So you should find the slant height using the formula L is equal to, or L square is equal to H square plus R square. So you should find L using h square plus r square, and then find pi RL, and then find the number of grains. Take a picture, children.
Look, ma'am.
Okay. What's the formula to find the CSA?
Pi RL.
Pi RL. Is R given to us in the question? Is R given to us in the question?
Yes, ma'am.
Is L given to us?
No, ma'am.
Then what is that other thing given along with R?
Height, ma'am.
Height. Height always means slant height or perpendicular height. When the word height is given, it always represents the perpendicular height h,
Oh.
not the slant height.
Yes,
Simply
ma'am.
height means perpendicular height. If it is slant height, it will be mentioned slant height. If nothing is mentioned, then it is perpendicular height, h. So using R and h, you have to find L. Only then you can use the formula pi RL. So the CSA of the corn cob is 132.73 centimeter square. 1 centimeter square, 4 grains. 132 centimeter square, how many grains? So 132 into 4, which is 531 grains approximately. We have to use the, I told you why it is not total surface area. Total surface area means including the circular portion of the cone. But here on the circular portion, you will not find grains. So if the grains are not on the circular portion, the remaining is the CSA. So to find CSA, pi RL, but we don't know L, so we find L and then we use pi RL. 1 centimeter square, 4 grains, 132 centimeter square, 531 grains. Like one book is 4 rupees, 132 books, how many rupees? One book is 4 rupees. 132 books will be 132 into 4 rupees, like that. The rest of it you'll have to complete. Take a screenshot. Example 7. Done. And this is simple. Surface area 4 pi r square. Take a picture, children.
Ma'am, can you show the previous one, ma'am? Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Yeah. NCERT examples. Take a picture, children.
Look, ma'am.
This one also over.
Yes, ma'am.
Others.
It doesn't send it to you. Huh?
Yes, ma'am.
Look, ma'am.
Look, ma'am.
Okay.
Look, ma'am.
And 1 second, can you show the 9th one?
Yeah.
Ma'am, after this class, we
Yes,
want to
ma'am.
write it in the classwork note and send it to you, ma'am.
Correct. Yeah. Please complete all this and then send it to me. Maybe you can take time till tomorrow. By tomorrow evening, send the pictures.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Ma'am, can you just show me the 10th example, ma'am?
Yeah, I'm coming to that. 10th, yes.
Took, ma'am.
Yeah.
Took, ma'am.
All right.
Ma'am, can you show the 11th one? Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah.
Took, ma'am.
Okay.
Took, ma'am.
Okay.
Ma'am, 1 minute 13th one, ma'am.
Yeah. Done?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Took, ma'am.
Okay. So to find the volume of the cone, you need R and H because 1/3 pi R square H. We know R, we don't know H. So we should find H. No, we're given these. Okay. We know the perpendicular height and slant height here. We don't know the radius. So we should first find the radius and then find the volume.
Took, ma'am.
Yeah.
Took, ma'am.
Others, all of you?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. This is over.
I'm 1 minute
Yes,
17.
ma'am. Took.
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
Ma'am, can you show the 17th example?
17, huh?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Took. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. 17, 18, 19, 20. So now, children, lower your hand and raise your hand again. No, lower. Okay. All right, children. Okay. All right, children. So that's it for today's session. Next class, we'll be taking a test on volumes and surface area during the class. Test on volumes and surface areas during the class. Please be prepared for the test by the next class.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you, children. We leave the call. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
ma'am.
you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, children. Yeah.